Hi, it's Laura at Marine 18. Thanks for stopping by my channel today. Welcome or welcome back. This is my end of month recap video for March 2022, and I'm filming this video on the last day of March. I'm pretty sure that this is the first time I've ever been on time with a monthly recap video. I feel oddly proud. March, I'll just start with the general updates as usual and then go into decks and books and so on. March has been a pretty mixed month. There's been some great fun things and exciting things and enjoyable things, and there have been a couple of things that are shit. So I will share both. On the good side of March, I started off the month early on with my birthday, and so that was a nice day. I got to have delicious takeout of my choice from a place that I love. I got to spend some time outside, just spent time with my partner for the most part. Normally I would have perhaps had a party at the house, but we're not doing those kind of things right now. So it was a pretty relaxed birthday, but it was nice. I talked to my family and had an all around nice relaxing day, I think. I also got to celebrate much more recently, towards the end of the month, Alban Eiler, or the spring equinox. So I had a day of equinox celebrating time. I took the day off of everything else, and I had my AODA Druidry ritual time. I had some divination time. I had some reflection time. I spent some time outside observing the seasonal shift. I also did some cleaning of my tarot reading table and my sacred spaces, and I kind of changed them over. I changed them over at every first day of every new season with different seasonal cloths and things like that. So that felt really good, and makes everything feel just lighter and refreshed, which is really nice. Also, Druidry related, I switched my bardic exploration. So I don't think I've talked about this too much on the channel before, but something that we do in the AODA Druidry as candidates in your first, which is the first degree, is that you can do these different kinds of explorations. And in an exploration, you spend 20 hours minimum on something completely new to you. And so a bardic exploration would be spending 20 hours on something new to you in the area of bardic arts, like anything artistic or creative. And I decided to do one. I've been feeling some creative blockage, I guess, or lack of creative energy, certainly, previous to joining the AODA. So I took that, invitation to push myself to try to do something new. And you can always, change your mind if you decide you want to try one thing and it's not something that's really captivating your interest, and so you change it to something else. And I did that, and I switched my bardic exploration to nature photography. So obviously, I've taken the odd photo before on my phone and things like this, but I've never really studied photography in any intensive way, or spent any real time doing that. But knowing what kinds of decks that I love, I'm sure it's no surprise that it's something that would be of some interest to me. So I have been learning how to use a camera, and mostly just taking lots of photos of Wally, who's this red squirrel that lives in my backyard. He's a fairly cooperative model on most days. He is the red squirrel who stashed a bunch of walnuts all around my yard. I've talked about that before. So he's quite a good nature photography model, as well as some birds and plants and so on. So I'm really enjoying that as well, and the weather's becoming nicer to be outside in, so that's great. In terms of the less awesome things in March, I guess, it's just a busy time work-wise with the semester winding down. I am anticipating a big mountain of term papers to grade very soon. So I've been kind of preparing and trying to get other things done, knowing that is coming. I left Instagram again. Folks who don't know this, I was on a break from Instagram in November, December, came back in January. I have realized that I liked my break more than I like being on. So I'm off again. I left my profile there with some contact information in the last post, but I have departed Instagram and no regrets. I anticipate that this will not be a break. I anticipate that it is actually a formal departure. So I'm happy with that. I'm feeling good about that. Otherwise, crappy things in March. I've just recently found out that I have some, I'll say, anxiety-induced physical health issues that are now being more fully identified than they have been historically. So I've been kind of dealing with the psychological and kind of emotional processing of learning about the impacts that my anxiety has had and is having on my teeth and my jaw and my neck. So it's still new, some of these things to be dealing with. I'm going to be trying to find ways to deal with them with the support of the dentist and any other relevant professional who might be a help with that. But it sucks. It really sucks. But I'm hopeful that knowing about these things now, I can try to avoid them from getting worse. So I guess like learning about it is, as difficult as it is a good thing in that respect. And so I will be working on those things going forward. It sucks though. So that's my March, ending on a rather flat note there. I did have some great things during March though, so I'm doing okay. So I'll move on to decks. I did purchase one deck in the month of March. It was a pre-order, so I don't have it here to show you yet. I never thought that I would necessarily go in the direction of the pop culture decks. I'm not much of a pop culture person, if I'm honest, but there is a forthcoming Star Trek Next Generation Tarot, and I pre-ordered it because I am a diehard Trekkie, and how could I not? So I'm looking forward to that. I'm also looking forward to, there's a Star Trek Tarot, the original series, in the works, which is not one of these mass market pop culture decks that have been coming out. The Next Generation one is, but the Star Trek Tarot is a company that's just doing that one deck and is going to be releasing it on the convention circuit. I'm looking forward to that one too, but I'm excited for Star Trek Next Generation Tarot when it comes. I did also receive one deck that I can share with you that I just recently got, and this was a Kickstarter that I had backed I don't know how long ago now, but a while ago anyway, and I just got the deck this month, and that is the River and Stone, and it is a playing card deck by Beth Sobel, and so I'll just show you a little bit of this deck. I have aspirations of learning playing card reading techniques. Admittedly, I'm not quite there yet, but I do love looking at playing card decks. The jokers in this deck, there's a little wee chipmunk joker and a bear joker. And so it is a fully illustrated playing card deck. So each suit has a kind of theme. So just to show a few here, ravens are in the spades, ravens and the moon. And the early cards in each suit kind of start with more just scenes, and then the later ones are more featuring the animal. Each of the court cards of Jack, Queen, and King show the same individual at different ages. So for the spades, We have this young child as the jack, and adult as the queen, and then an elder as the king. I quite like that choice. The clubs are mountainous regions. Maybe I'll do a full walkthrough of this deck. I haven't seen one yet. And the club animal is this little rodent here. I'm not sure if that's a mouse or what kind of rodent that this one is, but it's cute. And again, we have this same person for the clubs. And you see the clubs for wands. There's a fire symbol there, which is cool. For the hearts, which would be, of course, cups, we have a lot of water in there. And the animal is a jellyfish, which are really beautiful. And we have another girl there who is shown as an adult in the further cards, and then the diamonds are a nice earthy forest, lots of ferns, and the animal for that one is the fox. And we have a young girl again, who gets older in the queen, and again in the king. So that's my new deck, my playing card deck. I am looking forward to learning more about playing cards. I have a small little collection of playing cards. I plan to take a playing card class, I think, and spend some time learning. But that deck just stuck out to me on Kickstarter with the nature scenes, and so I'm excited for that one to have come. In terms of decks that I've been working with most this month, probably no surprise that it's my deck, my OM deck that doesn't have a name yet, but that I just made a copy for myself on Make Playing Cards. I appreciated all of the support, the kind comments on my unboxing video, seeing my own deck for the first time. I have decided that I am going to make this available on Make Playing Cards. It's probably going to be on Make Playing Cards. I'll do a little bit more research and look, but that's my plan. I do have some edits to make on the deck. I'm actually, the more that I've worked with it all month, I am actually quite happy with it. Initially, I just figured, I made it, so it would probably need a ton of edits, but I'm actually quite happy with it in many ways. I've decided to replace the image for Saul, the willow, with a photo that I took myself, just because it is very, very dark, and I don't want to get in too much of changing the colors of other people's photos and so on. So I am going to change that one, and I may or may not change the font that's there on the top. I'm not sure yet. I like the font on the bottom. It's, fancy but legible, which I like. I'm not sure about this top font though. But I'm happy with a lot of it. I'm happy with the backs. I'm happy with the colors in most of the images. There's just a little something here and there that I want to fix on it, in my opinion, and order another prototype. I may order the prototype in the linen instead of the smooth, just to see what that looks like. And once I'm feeling at ease with it, I will make it available for other folks who might like it. So I'm pretty excited about that. That's fun. It's not something I thought that I would be doing yet. I have deck plans, but this one really was just going to be for myself. But I know a couple of folks who are interested in having one, so I'm going to put it up on Make Playing Cards at some point. I don't know when it will be. I have also been working with the La Flora Tarot, which I did a walkthrough of this deck. This has been a great deck. I'll just show a few cards here rather than getting everything out. To learn about flowers and plants, there's the back again. I've been really enjoying this deck. It's a black and white. It pairs with lots of different decks really beautifully, and I'm so far quite enjoying the guidebook. I haven't read all of it, but I've been doing kind of daily draws and reading the message of the day. I like how the name of the plant is right on the card, as is the title of the card here at the bottom. I just really like how these are designed. I really like this. And I do like a black and white or monochromatic deck in general. And I feel like the plant card pairings are really well thought out, really beautifully done. So I'm very happy with this deck as well, which I have been enjoying working with. And it's been nice. I've been sticking with actually daily draws since January 1st, or maybe a bit before that. I feel like I was kind of conceiving of it as a bit of a resolution, but it did start earlier than that. And so it's been nice to get some older decks in my collection out and play around with them. And the other one that I've used a lot this month for daily draws, besides my own and the Flora Tarot, is the Compendium of Constellations deck by Claire of Black and the Moon. I really like this Oracle deck because it has a ton of cards. I think there's 80 something in here. It's quite a big, thick deck. The cards themselves are not very big, but it's substantial. I really like the keywords on these. And this deck also pairs well with just about any other deck in my collection. Like, it feels like it very much has its own personality if you think about it, if you think about decks that way, but also it feels very neutral. Like, aesthetically it feels very neutral with the plain backgrounds. So I've been really enjoying this deck, and I've been doing morning draws with this, with keywords like a card for doing well and a card for do better, which I think is one that I got from Katie Flowers, or just, something to focus on for the day, things like that. So I've been really enjoying working with this deck as well. I know this deck was out of print for a while, but my understanding is actually that it's back. So that's an exciting thing. If that was a deck that appealed to you that you didn't get, there's 90 cards actually. 90 cards. So I really like this deck. Those are the decks that I've been working with the most. I also had a great reading with my Wildwood Tarot for Equinox. Wildwood is my kind of designated druid work deck, and it's working out very well for that purpose. It's very different than the kind of deck that I would normally go for, but I'm really enjoying that as well. Books I've read this month is the next thing for the updates. Books I've read this month, there were 9 of them. I'm going to try not to be too long-winded, but I read some quite fantastic books this month, and I actually have quite a stack of books to show, though some of them were also on ebook. So I will go through the books. Fiction first. The first 2 books I'll talk about, I'll kind of talk about together. I don't know that they're going to be of that much interest, specifically because they are sequels. So I read the forthcoming sequel, Fevered Star by Rebecca Roanhorse, which is a sequel to Black Sun. And this is a series that is a fantasy series. It is set in a world inspired by pre-colonial Central American societies, and it's very good. I really enjoy this series. The other sequel I read is Eyes of the Void by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This is the final architecture series. The first book is called Shards of Earth, I believe, and this one, Eyes of the Void. And this series is a grand, sweeping space opera with a kind of thrown together feeling multi-species crew on a spaceship, and they're dealing with a bunch of different rivalries and factions while also dealing with a threat of planetary annihilation, I suppose, is how that should be best put. So these are both forthcoming sequels that are coming out later this year, and I really like both of these series. So I would not suggest Fevered Star by Rebecca Roanhorse or Eyes of the Void by Adrian Tchaikovsky if you haven't read the first book first. Both of them pick up right where the first books leave off and don't really work on their own. It would be very confusing, I think. So that's why I just kind of mentioned those briefly, because I don't think anyone's going to go out and pick them up based on the fact that I love them both when you have to read the first book first. I just read a novella, Burning Roses by S.L. Wang, and this is a kind of fairy tale retelling. It's not really a retelling so much as it's a fairy tale inspired story, and the two main characters are Rosa, who is Little Red Riding Hood, and Hu Yi, who is an archer of a fairy tale or story that is a Chinese story that I was previously unfamiliar with. And in this novella, the two of them are older queer women going on kind of one last quest. And it deals with regret and grief and loss and family. And it is definitely a fairy tale of the more adult, more violent content kind of fairy tale. Definitely not youth reading. But this was so good. I very, very rarely like contemporary fairy tale iterations of things, but Burning Roses was fabulous. I read it in kind of a day and a half, and it stuck. It stuck in here after I'd read it. I really appreciated it. I will say that. I really liked it. I read, this is the last fiction, I read Nazare by J.J. Amawaro Wilson. And this book, I asked for this book for a holiday gift from my family, having read J.J. Amawaro Wilson's first book, which is called Damnificados, and I loved it. And I had no idea what this was even about. I just saw that he had something else published, and I figured, I'm going to read it because I liked the first novel so much. And I love this one too. I loved this book. This book follows a young boy who's an orphan named Kin, who lives in a fishing village. He lives in a shipping container. And he ends up playing a key role in a revolution to overthrow a dictator who rules brutally and exploitatively over this fishing village and many other villages around it. He may or may not be kind of magically gifted, magically inclined, magically supported. It is it's a magical realism book. It is fantastical. It is fabulous. It is a little bit dystopian, but not really. It says dystopian on the back up here. I don't necessarily think it is that way, but it is so much fun. And the back of the book talks about the revolution that they have, and it says, their revolution is unlike any other, fought by tinkers and miners, monks and acrobats, clairvoyants in bowler hats, a painted saint, the king of the rats, and a giant turtle named Abacoxy. The holy man Fundogu once told Kin, "You will do battle with monsters, and you will do battle with men." As Fundogu's prophecy takes shape around him, Kin remembers another of his sayings: "Everything begins and ends in the sea." I loved this. I love this, and I love Damnificados as well. Damnificados is a fictionalized magical realist telling of the Tower of David skyscraper in Caracas, Venezuela, which was a kind of half-finished skyscraper that was kind of taken over and populated by working class folks who created a society therein, and this is a great follow-up. It had many of the things that I liked about the first book. Also, I liked about this book. I love this. I will read this again. I loved this book. I have quite a few more hard copy books to share with you because I made some progress on my book stack of joy this month. I also cheated on it, but won't say anything more about that. For March as well, and March was Women's History Month, I read Wayward Lives, Beautiful Experiments, Intimate Histories of Riotous Black Girls, Troublesome Women, and Queer Radicals by Dr. Saidiya Hartman. And this is an incredible work of archival research and historical research that I cannot recommend highly enough. 5 stars from me. Dr. Hartman's other book, Lose Your Mother, is very, very high now on my wish list. And has been on my wish list, and this one had as well, ever since I saw Dr. Hartman in a conversation on YouTube with Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw and my favorite fantasy author, N.K. Jemisin, and they had this amazing conversation. And this is really, really good. And it focuses on kind of the late 1800s as a time period and looks at Black women's lives during this time. And Hartman writes in the introduction with regards to method, what I know about the lives of these young women has been culled from the journals of rent collectors, surveys and monographs of sociologists, trial transcripts, slum photographs, reports of vice investigators, social workers, and parole officers, interviews with psychiatrists and psychologists, and prison case files, all of which represent them as a problem. And she goes on to write, I have crafted a counter-narrative liberated from the judgment and classification that subjected young Black women to surveillance, arrest, punishment, and confinement, and offer an account that attests to beautiful experiments to make living an art undertaken by those often described as promiscuous, reckless, wild, and wayward. And she concludes the introduction noting that the wild idea that animates this book is that young Black women were radical thinkers who tirelessly imagined other ways to live and never failed to consider how the world might be otherwise. And the amazing photographs that Dr. Hartman has included, and just the way that she writes from the, like, within the time period is brilliant. So brilliant. I read an autobiography as well. I read The Motion of Light and Water, Sex and Science Fiction Writing in the East Village by Samuel Delany. And I mentioned in my last update video that I had attended a Zoom interview with Samuel Delany, who's an incredible, accomplished science fiction author and memoirist as well, who has won multiple major science fiction and fantasy awards, including the nonfiction for this book. And it mostly is looking at the early 1960s and his experiences in his very early career. And I loved this. I loved this so much. It feels like a capturing of a particular time period in a way that is rare. And I really appreciated this book. And so I also have Samuel Delany's novel Nova sitting on my pile. And Nova I've mentioned before, includes tarot in it, in the story. So I'm going to make a video about that. But this one is for an autobiography, specifically detailing gay life and queer life in the 60s, and some in the late 50s as well. This is a really incredible account, for sure. 5 stars also. Really incredible. With some colleagues from work, we read a comic together, which is The Quick and Easy Guide to They Them Pronouns by Archie Bongiovanni and Tristan Himerson. And you can see that I've bookmarked it. We are doing some learning together at work, and so this is one of the books that we have read, and it's very introductory. But in terms of explaining kind of very basics about how they them pronouns work, indeed how pronouns work kind of in general, and respecting people's self-identification and self-determination with respect to gender, and also with respect to how people prefer to be and want to be and are to be identified or described. It's a good intro. It's a very, very, very introductory, though, I will say. It's very short as well. I read a book that I've been reading for like quite a long time, I will say. That took a very long time. I read Trees, Their Natural History by Peter A. Thomas. This is a really cool book. Like, if you're a druid, you know, like this is a good book to read. It has different chapters in it. So a chapter on the leaves, a chapter on the trunk, a chapter on roots, a chapter on flowers, fruits, and seeds, and so on. And it's not about one specific species of tree, but it's taking examples from all around the world. It has lots of beautiful photos and explanations of different phenomena and like how trees work, I guess, like the internal structures of trees and how they grow and how they reproduce and so on. It's got really extensive bibliography. The author is a lecturer in botanical and environmental science at Keele University, and really fascinating. And I will say that what I liked about this, in terms of recommending it, is I found that for me, as somebody with no natural sciences background at all, like I took physics in 12th grade, like in high school, and have no natural sciences or environmental science background at all beyond that. This was the right amount of challenging. I feel like I learned a lot. I learned a lot of terminology, and the author doesn't shy away from, of course, using, you know, lots of botanical terminology, but it's all explained quite well and quite clearly. And so it was challenging at times, but not by any means impenetrable, even for somebody who knows like nothing about the subject matter whatsoever. So in terms of the kind of level, I thought that this was really good and would probably be a good, you know, textbook perhaps for a particular kind of class on trees, but also to just learn about trees and about kind of the anatomy of a tree, I guess. This is a good book for that, I would say. Last, but certainly not least, I read Bibliophile Diverse Spines by Jamise Harper and Jane Mount. And the idea of this book is to find diverse books in all different kinds of genres. These are all books that are by Black folks, Indigenous folks, folks of color, and the book also covers like bookstore owners and book bloggers and reviewers and folks who work in publishing and their recommendations for books, all different kinds of things. And there are these beautiful illustrations inside, legends. There's Octavia Butler over there in the legends, Audre Lorde, these stacks of books. So the diverse spines is the spines of all of these different books. And there are sections on queer stories, there's sections on mystery and horror, there's sections on speculative fiction. I'd read a lot of those ones. On people's writing rooms and what they look like, different authors' offices and things where they work, historical fiction, really just everything. And I devoured this book, and it has a goal. The book at the beginning of the introduction, it says, "In creating this miscellany, our goal is for you to find at least 10 new to you and irresistible diverse books by authors of backgrounds different from your own, or from your own that you haven't read yet, that you'll read in the next year, and then 10 more for the year after that, and so on." The idea being to keep seeking out and reading diverse stories. And so one who likes to go with, if there's a goal, I'll go with it. I picked 10 and I put them on a Post-it. So I've chosen 10 books from here that I have not yet read. Some of them I'd heard of, but quite a few I had not. So I picked a mix of fiction and nonfiction, and some older texts. So for a classic, I chose Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin, which I have never read. Somehow I've never read. And I picked some contemporary novels, and I'm looking forward to that. This is so good. If you are a book lover, which you are if you've watched this video up to this point probably, or if you have a book lover in your life, who would like a gift, this is it. It's really well done. It's really nice. It's a really nice book to just hold. It's got beautiful gold, gilded text on it. It's a nice hardcover. Part of the money from the sales of this book goes to We Need Diverse Books, which is great. I have a feeling that in the future I will be gifting this, to a couple of people in my life. And when I do, perhaps another giveaway on this channel sometime this year, I'll throw one of these in the prize, because I think it's really, really good. They've got a really good range of books in here, and so many that are new to me, and I'm really excited by this, and I'm happy to have this on my shelf. So 5 stars as well. That's a lot of reading that I did this month. Early in the month, I was like, I'm really not going to read very much because some of the books are quite long. But then I read some short ones and finished a couple, like the tree book that I'd been reading for a long time. So I ended up having read quite a few. Happy with that. That's the books. Animal of the month. I will get my notes in my day planner here because I write down all about the animal of the month as I learn things about the animal of the month. And I'm also going to pick a new animal of the month this month from the not yet drawn cards. What's going on here? Some cards go back in the box with the Druid Animal Oracle because I don't work with like dragons and things like this, so I don't shuffle those in. The animal of the month this month, you may recall if you were here last, was Wren. And the keywords for Wren in the guidebook for this deck, which is the Druid Animal Oracle, are humility, cunning, and God. And the word cunning comes from a story about the Wren, where there is a contest of which animal can fly the highest. And the eagle immediately goes, soars very high. An eagle soars very high and says, I'm the winner. And Wren comes sneaking out from underneath eagle's feathers and flies a little bit higher and says, no, I win. And so this is the cunning of the Wren. I learned that a wren's nest is sometimes called the Druid's house, which I found very interesting, with the idea that the nest is a place of incubation, of course, incubation of the eggs that are there, and that's important for growth and for change. You need to incubate something, and the Wren reminds of the beauty of smallness, small and unassuming, and humble. though not humble when bragging about flying higher than the eagle. Let's be honest. I also learned that the word in Welsh, which I'm not going to try to pronounce because I will get it wrong, the word in Welsh for wren is also the word in Welsh for druid. So there is a strong association here. And the reason that there's lightning on this card is because legend has it that the god Tyrannus will strike with their lightning anyone who tries to steal the eggs from the wren's nest, that the wren's nest is protected. And I learned some interesting things about wrens in Ontario, where I live, including the fact that we have two species of wrens in Ontario, the house wren and the marsh wren. The marsh wren doesn't really live where I live. Maybe I'll look for them this summer when I'm further north and I'm camping, but the house wren is certainly around, and I've seen plenty of the house wrens. And I also learned in the wren's, what do I want to say, social organization, that the wren varies widely in terms of how monogamous the wren is, depending on the species of wren. So some are polyamorous wrens and some are monogamous wrens, which is interesting. And something that the marsh wren does, and maybe this could go with it doesn't really go with the keyword of cunning, but certainly with having a plan, I would say, and working with what one has. The marsh wren, the male marsh wren, will make like 6 different nests, and he'll make them all in different places. And when he has a partner, he will take the partner around on a kind of tour and tour all of the different nests, so that when it comes time for the partner to lay eggs and sit on the eggs, the partner has a choice of where to do that. So the male wren does all the work of making the nest, up to 6 different times, and then does a little tour. And I found that very fascinating about the cunning wren. So I've enjoyed learning about the wren, and maybe with my nature photography practice, I will be able to find one. I don't have a good bird viewing lens. You need a very good zoom to get a really good close-up of birds. They're obviously hard to get close to, and you don't want to be disturbing anything. Certainly wouldn't want to be disturbing a nest, for example, because I've also learned in learning about a number of different birds that live around me that even if you don't necessarily think that you're disturbing, like you're not touching anything, that kind of being too close to a nest with eggs in it for too long and like too many times can lead the eggs to be abandoned because the bird gets stressed and freaked out about whether the nest is safe or not, and so they'll leave them there. Loons will do that as well. So good to be mindful when you see a wren's nest. Don't get too close to it. Always good to know. I will pick the next animal. I've as always, I've taken out again, I took out like the dragon cards and stuff because I just don't use these kinds of things with the animal deck personally, and also the blank cards. And I also took out the few that I've already had this year, so for the sake of non-repetition, we will not get otter or bull or wren again. But the animal of the month for April that I will get to learn and share about, who will sit on my sacred space upstairs for April, will be, we'll take the top one. Oh, raven. Another bird here. There are plenty of ravens here, so that's great. I'm looking forward to learning more about raven too. Fantastic. That's a good pick. They're all good picks, but I'm excited. I'm excited about raven. I'm not even going to peek in the guidebook right now. We'll just see what happens at the end of the month. So raven is next. I also thought, just for fun, since we haven't done it in a while, and I'm very well through, I'm not done, But I'm to the point where I'm through my book stack of shame that I've started to cheat, or my book stack of joy, rather, no shame. Book stack of joy. I've started to cheat and I bought one book, even though I'm not done the stack. But I'm pretty much done the fiction on the stack, which means there might be a haul. There might be a little book haul for me to share later on this month. We'll see. But I thought, why not pull out the TBR cards by Jessie over at Bowties and Books here on YouTube and on Instagram as well, with the art by Olivia Simone. And we could pick... let's pick 3. Ambitious. 3 TBR cards to guide the reading for April. I'm just going to pick 3 off the top. I haven't done this in so long. I'm excited. Now, if I get the 500-page card again, I don't know what I'm going to pick, but we will see what comes up. I have a lot of books that I want to read, so. Okay. Card number 1. A mentally and or physically disabled protagonist book. Disability representation. And I'll just go straight off the top. Card number 2. Oh, a book you're unsure about. I don't know how to assess that. We will find out. And book number 3. A book by an Indigenous author, with Thunderbird Woman Reads featured there. I have a couple of books by Indigenous authors, I think 2 of the 10 that I picked out of here, so I have some ideas. I have some ideas for this one for sure. So, in April, it may be a combination of a couple of them, but we'll see. I will be reading a book with disability representation with regard to the protagonist. I will find a book that I'm unsure about and read it. Maybe that'll be a book I've never heard of. I don't know. We'll see. And a book by an Indigenous author. So that's the books for April. And my goodness, I've rambled for a while. I am going to end this recap here. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I will see you all again soon. I have some plans for a couple of tags that I've been meaning to do that I haven't gotten done for April. Maybe we'll do some tags, and maybe I'll do a little walkthrough of the River and Stone playing cards as well. We'll see what happens. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you're all well, and I will see you again soon.